started. It's Friday, June 2nd, and we are in the Lakeland Electric Conference Room 1A and B. We are going to start with the Real Estate and Transportation Committee. Mike Music, the chair, is here, along with Commissioner Chad McLeod, and Commissioner Simmons is also here in the room. We have one item today to discuss, and it is the first modification of lease agreement with Two Monies LLC.
Good morning, everyone. This is just one item under real estate and transportation. It's the airport lease. This is the first modification to the ground lease agreement with Two Monies LLC. They've been operating out of the airport since May of 2018. They have a private hangar and they lease the ground space. This originates from a lease that the city had originally with the Anheuser-Busch Company back in April 1993. And then that lease was subsequently assigned twice, and then ultimately in 2018 to Two Monies LLC. They currently lease about 0.76 acres off of Taxi Lane H at 3907 Aero Place. That's the north central area of the airport. They are now seeking to modify the renewal terms of its ground lease. They are seeking to reduce the 10-year MIA base rent adjustment cap from 12% to 8%. Specifically, that annual rental payment for the renewal period would be subject to an 8% of the appraised value of the lease land at the start of the renewal term. And they are actually currently, as of May 1st, they initiated their right to renew that lease. So the effective date of the modification would be retroactive to May 1st, 2023. So this renewal, again, is the first of 3 additional 10-year renewal terms contained in the existing lease. Base rent for that first renewal will be $13,242.24 per month. That does not include utilities or any applicable taxes, which Two Monies would be required to pay in addition to the base rent, except for changing that adjustment cap on the renewal rates. There are no other changes to the existing agreement.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee members? Yes, Commissioner McLeod?
Just Two Monies.
Two Monies is basically, that's just a company name. You see a lot of private hangars that are in LLCs that have, like, Doherty Toys LLC, and it's just a shell, in a sense, a business that they operate their aviation stuff in. So they have private aircraft in there that they operate. That's all they do.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much. And that is our only item on the Real Estate Committee today, so we have a few minutes until we start our commission meeting at 8:30. Is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Do we motion to approve? And a second, I guess, would be me. All in favor? Aye, it passes unanimously. Thank you. So in 2 minutes, we'll be starting our agenda study.
Started without a quorum. Agenda.
presentations. We've got solar presentation, looks like. We've got the beautification awards, and then we've got 6 proclamations that are gonna come. We're going to have our committee report that we just went over, and then we have a couple of items to consider approval for consent.
Yeah, Commissioner, I believe we only have one item on the consent agenda, and that is the 5:01 PM hearing waiver, and that just corresponds to item 3B6 on the agenda, which is the Brownfield resolution, because the statute requires that one of the public hearings take place after 5 PM, and we typically ask the city commission to waive that requirement, so that's what's on consent.
Do we have an issue with leaving that on consent? Okay. All right, so we will leave that on consent. Do we have any requests to appear before the general public? Would it be listed there if we did?
It would be listed
Okay,
if
so
we had
because
it. We
there's
don't
none
have
there, okay,
anyone.
then we're gonna have lots clear. So let me ask you a question. As I'm going through this, I just go over everything until I get to A1, and then we'll start talking about A1? Is that how that works?
Correct. I
Okay.
mean,
So we do have equalization.
yeah, there's nothing unusual about
Okay.
the list of
Okay.
lots clearing for equalization.
All right, so our first will be some second readings and ordinances, A1.
Yes, A1 is the drop ordinance. I think we had a lot of discussion about that particular ordinance the last time. That's the amendment to the pension plan for general employees that would expand the drop program from 5 years to 8 years. Again, I think we discussed this. It's completely voluntary for an employee to elect to have a longer drop period, similar to what has already been done for police. The ordinance would be effective on June 5th upon your approval, and then anyone who had entered drop before that date would obviously not be eligible to re-enter because it doesn't have a retroactive effective period.
Okay.
I have a question,
Any
Mr.
questions
Chair.
on that? Yes.
And we may have covered this, but the interval going from 5 to 8, what was the rationale behind that? I mean, how did we get to that number?
That was done to mirror what many other organizations across the state are doing. They were moving from 5 to 8 years was the logic. When the pension board's attorney researched it, what he found was most had gone to 8 as well. I think Sherry indicated maybe one of them was at 7, but most all of them had gone to, that had changed, had gone to 8 as
Why
well.
8? You know, why
Yeah.
not 7? Why not 9?
Yeah, that's
10?
good.
Why-
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, 8 was what the state had gone to. And that's originally, when this was implemented in '03, the state had gone to 5, and so the pension board and the city had agreed that they were going to mirror the state and go to 5 then. So it was just,
Following the same pattern
yes, sir.
now. of
Yes,
following
yeah, for the same logic
mirroring the
of
state.
trying to get teachers and police officers and so forth to stay longer in their current positions. So that same logic applied.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you and I have talked a little bit about this, just because it's something that I don't understand. So at the commission meeting on Monday, if it's not brought up by another commissioner, because I've never been in this sector, I'm gonna kind of ask for an overview of the drop program, what it means and how it works.
Sure.
Because it's something that I had to kind of wrap my head around, and you and I have talked about, not only is it not gonna cost money, but there's a savings included in that. So I, to spend some time talking about that, because those of us that are on the outside, in the private sector, trying to wrap our heads around that. So I won't take the time now, but we'll be talking about that on Monday.
And we'll make sure that Sherry's here as well, our retirement services manager as well, so.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay. Second, we have ordinance number 2, proposed vacating right-of-way located at Peachtree and Magnolia.
Yeah, this is the second reading for this particular vacation of right-of-way. This is related to the Peachtree Flats development. That particular right-of-way bisects the property and contains a number of private and public utility easements which have been relocated, and there hasn't been an objection to that. The developer is asking us to vacate that right-of-way in order to construct the multifamily development there. And we have, in fact, the city has in fact received a check from the Lake Wire Apartments LLC. That governs the whole cost of that right-of-way vacation, and that amount was $17,168. So that has been received.
Thank you. Any questions on that? The only question that I would have, and it's probably a Public Works question, is it possible that there's something under there that we don't know as old as that area is? Heath? I mean, when we look down here in any of these roads that we have that are the brick pavers and stuff, it's really old. I mean, we don't really have much of a concern of some.
Well, we have a lot of historical data and GIS data that we collect. I'm sure that we evaluated that when this came before us, so hopefully there was nothing there that we're unaware of, but there's always a potential that something is there, some utility or something along those lines.
But we've done our due diligence,
We have.
obviously, and, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Music, when these requests come through our Office of Real Estate and Property Information, they do route the request through all of the city departments, including Public Works and the utilities, to make sure that there aren't any conflicts or any concerns in vacating the easements.
When we look at the diagram that we have in our packet, and we've got the lots laid out, historically, if we roll the world back, was there development on this at times? Is the most this has been developed, or have these been vacant for?
I would assume that there was some development on at least several of the lots, just looking at some of the ground disturbance areas, but without going back to a historical aerial, I couldn't say for sure which ones were previously developed. Okay. But yes, it was platted it appears as a residential subdivision.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we're moving on to resolutions. Number 1 is proposed lots and clearing.
Yes, sir, and this is just the corresponding resolution that goes with our lot cleaning and clearing provision that we see, the list of properties. That's just standard that we typically look at.
Moving on to number 2, proposed number 23026, authorized approval of agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for funding the removal and relocation of city water and city utilities located in the state right-of-way due to the construction of the interchange modification of I-4 and State Road 33. Praise the Lord for that.
Yeah. This particular item, I think you'll probably be familiar with. FDOT the project is a major undertaking with regard that involves widening, widening State Road 33 and replacing the I-4 overpass at State Road 33 would also include drainage improvements. And one of the issues with regard to this project is the fact that Lakeland Electric and our Water Utilities Department have a number of electric facilities and water facilities that are located in the state right-of-way. And when those types of city facilities are in the state right-of-way, we're required to compensate for removing those. It's our financial responsibility to remove those. So what's happening here is we've done a cost assessment with our engineering groups and gotten an estimate of what it would cost. Well, FDOT is willing to take that on and hire the construction crews, since they're going to be out there doing that work anyway, and we are going to be funding the relocation of our facilities. Water has a number of conflicts out there that need to be moved, and they will be making improvements as well to the city's existing wastewater system. And Lakeland Electric, if you recall, FGT was purchasing, we were transferring ownership of that pipeline to FGT, but there's a portion of pipeline that won't be transferred that'll actually be not decommissioned, not used anymore, and that's a 3-mile portion of that natural gas pipeline, and it's our responsibility to dispose of that in accordance with the proper protocol. So the total cost, it's a pretty hefty price tag. It's $10,411,889 for the construction of both of those, and breaking that down, water's share is $6,955,889, and Lakeland Electric's share is $3,456,000. Water share is included in their FY24 budget, and Lakeland Electric's shares, I think you've heard Tori do some presentations, will come out of the Lakeland Electric's fuel budget for this particular project. And I know we've got staff here, Robbie Kniss from Water and Tori Bombard from Lakeland Electric who can give you a little bit more technical detail on what's going to be occurring. But you'll see the map up. It's attached to your agenda packet and here where you can see the location of where that work is going to be taking place for both gas and water.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ramona. I would like to hear from Robbie and Tori, just anything you would add onto that. And I'm curious about timeline for the relocation. And then do we have a clearer view for the overall construction project? I know that's kind of been, there are different time horizons out there. So is it starting to come into view?
So we always have the opportunity to self-perform, and we make that analysis. This was such a big project, we decided to partner with DOT. So as Ramona said, as they do their construction and in their bid package that will go out, it will include all of this work. So really, we're hands-off. We'll be out there inspecting it, watching over everything, approving the pay applications, but the schedule will be completely driven by the road contractor, so it'll kind of be seamless. It takes us out of any risk of not keeping up with the schedule. So,
Okay.
So that's why
good
we
to know,
made the decision here to go with them.
Okay.
And let them handle that.
Okay.
And so really, this is just an agreement to be able to transfer the money to DOT and then allow them to more or less kind of take ownership of all of this. We had previously brought you task authorizations for some of our consultants, so we're using Chastain Skillman to design this. So we are designing it. I guess we're in control of the design. The plans have to be prepared to DOT's specifications, and then that's given to DOT, and that's again part of this agreement to incorporate all this into their scope of work. And the same thing true with Lakeland Electric. They hired AECom to prepare the removal plans. We'll give that to DOT, and then DOT will remove and get rid of that gas line, the out of service gas line.
That's helpful. It's encouraging to see this
Yeah.
moving forward.
It's been a
yeah,
long process,
yeah.
and honestly, it was really impactful to the utilities, and we're finally able to sort it out and, work out a plan. The line along, the wastewater line along 33, it kind of worked out, was completely obliterated by retention ponds, but we also had a desire to upsize it, so it's just the right time to go ahead and go forward that upsize. So the force main was 12 inch, is going to go to 24 inch. So there's just some things that work together really well.
Okay.
Thank you. Robert, quick question. So I love that we're kicking the liability down to the DOT and letting them kind of handle that project and just writing the check. The question that I have is, because the work hasn't started yet, because they're still going out to bid and all of that kind of stuff, how did we come up with this budget number, and how confident are we in that budget number?
DOT is very picky about how all this is done, and we don't do this a lot, so at least on my behalf, there's been some challenges, but they bid projects like this all the time, all throughout the state, and they have what they call their statewide averages, and you have to use those numbers to come up with your estimates. They have a wide range, so those are the numbers that we use to come up with that. They will put it out to bid. We'll get the real numbers, and when we get the real numbers, we have the option to pull out of the contract and go do it ourselves, although we'll be left with little to no time to do it. Or, we pony up any additional money, or it might come in lower. Nothing nowadays is coming in lower.
I was going to say, I like that idea. Yeah, okay. All right, that was my concern. I mean, obviously, these numbers are created, but using it off of a DOT model makes sense, so thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner McLeod.
Tori's on deck. The budget, this amount, the $3 million coming out of the fuel budget, can you remind us, is that something that
Yeah,
we have
that's
been
why it
planning
came
for?
up. I'll be doing a presentation at the utility committee too, and touching on this. But back in February, when we came to you, because we knew that we were gonna have to move our pipeline, so we partnered with our FGT to take over, to build us another section. They're gonna build 1.5 miles and then tie into our Lake Parker line. So we came to you and asked permission to fund it out of the fuel budget. And so, so that's what you'll see when I come to you. And right now, with the estimates that we're seeing for the timeline, even though we have this resolution, we're not really having to come up with the money probably to about January of '24. It's more off just, we have to say we're obligated to pay it, you know. The state is trying to make sure that everybody's on the hook before they do the project. So we're not paying it this month or anything. So I don't know if that helped clarify
does.
it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so not only are we getting this work done, because we've waited long enough and it's been down there, we've been able to utilize some upgrades which is exciting. So I think the construction will frustrate us all, but the improvements will be appreciated. So excellent. Okay, number 2. Are we on number 3? Sorry, let me mark that out. Number 3, the approval amendment to the traffic signal maintenance and compensation agreement with the Florida DOT.
This is an amendment to an existing agreement that we have with DOT. It's a traffic signal agreement. And this is agreement that basically states that the city has agreed to maintain FDOT's traffic signals that are on state roads but contained in the city limits. So what happens every once in a while, these particular traffic signals get updated or additional gets added to, the devices get added to the agreement. So that's basically what's happening here, is that we're just amending the agreement to include some updates and additional traffic devices, and FDOT pays the city to maintain those traffic devices as well.
Thank you. Any questions on that? No? Okay, number 4, the proposed vacating of public easement located within the villages at Bridgewater, Village 14.
This is just a vacation of a public utility easement within Bridgewater. This development is ready to go and it's been platted, so we are just needing to vacate the utility easements. There's been no objection by any of the utility providers on this one, so it's a pretty standard vacation.
Questions on that? All right, number 5, the proposed authorization to execute a grant agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for financing project 453094-1-94-01 for the security enhancement and upgrades of Lakeland Linder International Airport.
This particular security enhancement and upgrade project for the airport, the total cost of this is about $350,000, and FDOT's grant contribution pursuant to this is $280,000, and then the city's contribution would be $70,000, and essentially the project includes upgrades and addition of closed circuit cameras at gates, gate operators, fence replacement, and also upgrades to hardware and replacement of electronic controllers for those gates. So the city's contribution pursuant to the grant agreement would be $70,000, and then FDOT would be contributing the other $280,000 for the project.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you. Chris, you read my mind. I was just going to ask you to elaborate in terms of, the upgrades. Are these things that we don't have in place today, or is it just an enhancement? If you can just
So
share.
it's enhancement and just upgrading existing infrastructure that we have in security. What happens is that actually like 2 years ago, I put this request for grant together with FDOT, and we always are looking for what we call fallout money. Fallout money is the state had the money for another project, and either that money wasn't expended or the project sponsor didn't execute and didn't use the money. And then here at Lakeland, we like to be, we're here, we're ready, let's do something. And so Christy sent us an email the other day and had fallout monies available. So that's what brought us to today. We have been consistently adding security enhancements to the airport. Every year in the budget, we've added cameras and access controls and worked on fences and gates and all those fun things that we do to secure the airport. But this gives us the ability to replace some really old, long, like 3,000 feet of old fence that is kind of decrepit, doesn't meet my standard for appearance, and also add some more cameras. And then also, as Ramona mentioned in the memo, a lot of our hardware on our door access systems that we badge into at the airport are no longer supported because of their age. We're generations past that technology, and they went, no, we don't support these anymore. So we had this up and coming issue, and this is just one way to fund it through an 80-20 grant with the state. So
Always good to see those grant dollars coming in. Yeah, thank you.
A question, if I may. I thought it was interesting, you mentioned follow-up money with the state. How often do you access that?
Whenever they are willing to give it to us, we
So
receive
how
it.
do you know about it? How do you-
So we're in constant communication with our friends over at FDOT. You know, FDOT is one of the biggest funding partners of the airport. You know, of course, FAA is a huge funding partner, but FDOT is actually a larger funding partner for the airport. So we are constantly in meetings with our representative at DOT. We talk about the needs of the airport, what we're doing in the future with the airport, what we see, you know, for, you know, future development that we might need help with architecture or master plan layouts or all of this other stuff. And she keeps us in mind, and when some money that doesn't get expended at another airport, that may not have the ability to fund that 20%, or they don't, you know, their needs at the airport are similar to ours, they can't spend that money, so the state has where they need to spend the money that was allocated. So we're always there to say, hey, we'll spend that for you.
Of course, man, that is great.
Yeah, so that's what follow-up money is. Follow-up is a slang term. It's not technical. You won't find it in an FDOT book.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it.
And that, thank you for bringing that up, because that was what I was going to say, is one thing that, that we talk about a lot, but I don't know that we talk about enough, is how good our team is at getting grant money, and then, you know, bringing somebody on to just do that has been wonderful, because things are expensive and they're only getting more expensive. So being able to grab those federal dollars or state dollars you guys have just done a wonderful job at that. So thank you for that, and I hope we
It'll be a
continue to
huge-
praise for that.
It'll be a huge improvement for the safety and security of the airport. So, I mean, we're lucky. We interject money into our security program all the time. This is a leap, and we need this leap, and it's perfect timing.
And it's good to say lucky, but really, it's hard work, right? You guys are going out and you've applied for this for years. So being able to be diligent at that is appreciative, so thank you. Anything else on that? Excellent. Okay, number 6, the proposed designation of property located at 2030 and 2035 Griffin Road as a brownfield area.
Yes, Commissioner Alex Lamback in our office has worked on this and can present that one.
Morning. Alex Landback for the City Attorney's Office. This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lakeland designating the property located at 2030 through 2035 Griffin Road as a brownfield area, authorizing the City Attorney to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection of said designation, providing for severability and providing an effective date. This property is owned by Blue Griffin Terrace LLC, and it's located between it's on Griffin Road between Kathleen and I-4. They're applying for this designation due to presence of actual contamination that exists on that subject property due to its historical use as a grove for over 40 years. And so when it's fully redeveloped, their plan is to have an affordable multifamily housing community with about 88 units and 2 residential buildings and community amenities and the like. This designation is part of their ultimate viability for the project that will enable Blue Griffin Terrace to access certain regulatory and economic incentives to mitigate and manage the risk for the redevelopment that's necessary for this property. And we will have a representative for Blue Griffin Terrace here on Monday to be able to elaborate on it and some of the nuances to this project.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? No, and that's a great area for redevelopment. What's going over there, what's already existing, it's access to I-4 is wonderful. So thank you very much.
The commission, there'll be no action taken on this on Monday. It just, because it's a brownfield designation, so it requires a second reading. So
Okay.
you'll
All right, thank you. All right, we have nothing from the CRA, nothing from the city manager. So we have some first readings from the city attorney.
Yes, the first one that we have is a conditional use to allow for replacement of mobile homes within a non-conforming mobile home park that's located on the north side of Union Drive, south of I-4. And I believe Teresa can pull that up.
And this is, along with another zoning action that follows, is located within the Robson Street neighborhood. And I can go through both of these in detail today, or if the preference is, I could do it at Monday's meeting, since
My
there are
suggestion
a number
would-
of commissioners not here today.
Right, yeah, and that would be my suggestion, just not for redundancy. I think if we've got some questions that we can give that you guys can work on for Monday, outside of that, I would certainly, Teresa, agree with that. Yes.
What is a non-conforming?
So non-conforming in this instance for this mobile home park means that at the time that it was brought into the city, so it was annexed in the early 2000s, it was given a zoning designation of single family, but the existing use at that time was mobile home park. And so at the time it came into the city and received that single family zoning, it in essence became a non-conforming use, meaning the use wasn't consistent with the zoning.
We had any opposition yet on that?
On this one, no. On this case, no.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that would be number one, and we'll kick that until Monday. So number two,
Modification of an existing conditional use to allow preschool with a maximum enrollment of 67 students as an accessory use to an existing church that's located on 411 Robson Street. And I guess Teresa, you can pull, got that one as well.
Yes, again, in the Robson Street neighborhood, this particular campus is Northside Assembly of God, and relatively simple to utilize an existing sanctuary for a preschool.
we want to kick that presentation as well till
Sure, I can
Monday.
go
if
through it
there's
in
any-
detail Monday.
Okay, any questions right now? Okay, thank you for that. All right, B1, we've got the hearing waiver that we have on consent, and then so we have miscellaneous reports number 2.
Yeah, miscellaneous reports number 2, the contract with Garney Companies for progressive design build services associated with the Western Trunk Gravity Sewer Replacement, Phase 2 of the project, and Alex Lamback is here from our office. He has also worked on this item.
Morning again, Alex Lamback for the City Attorney's Office. This contract with Garney Companies is for progressive design build services associated with the Western Trunk Gravity Sewer Replacement. It's a Phase 2 of 3. This is for the planned replacement of the existing 36-inch Western Western Trunk Gravity Sewer Line, which is approximately 12,800 linear feet with 43 manholes, 47 branches that flow along that route. The existing line is responsible for about 3.5 million gallons per day on average that terminates at the city's southwest pump station. This original line is a reinforced concrete piped gravity sewer with manholes that were lined in the 1980s, which reduced the capacity for each of those for the entire line. And so that line has since reached its capacity, which significantly limits the development along the line. And the line has started to show maintenance and reliability concerns, which justify the replacement of this critical infrastructure asset in lieu of doing any kind of short-term localized repairs. This project utilizes a progressive design build delivery system, which is basically where we progress from a preliminary route evaluation to engineering and design, then to construction. And so this is all happening in 3 separate phases. The intent is to structure these phases so that the city can get a more accurate estimate as to the final cost for construction. And along the way, Garney is able to conduct the evaluation in Phase 1 and now be able to move into engineering and design. On November 7th, 2022, the city approved Phase 1 services with Garney, which completed branch verification, surveys of existing manholes, route study, hydraulic modeling, and engineering along the selected route. The scope of the services that are going to be provided under this contract are summarized in the table contained in the memo, and they'll be compensated for a fixed fee based on that table. Ultimately, this contract is limited to Phase 2 services only, and so their ultimate task in this Phase 2 is to come up with a guaranteed maximum price. And so all the engineering and design they're doing for this will culminate in that GMP, which will be presented to the city to consider for review. And if city staff, once we review the GMP, and we can negotiate the terms for that Phase 3, and however, if the city is unable to reach an agreement, we do have an off-ramp where we can either move on with a different contractor or figure out another alternative. Our hope is to be able to, for consistency, be able to work things out with Garney for a Phase 3 and move forward with this, because this is very important in terms of our infrastructure. And if we do reach an agreement for Phase 3, that will be provided and presented to this commission as part of an amendment to this contract at a later date. All services will be performed in accordance with the conditions set forth in the contract, which is for your review. And a total not to exceed cost associated with this Phase 2 contract is $1,592,839. This has been approved and budgeted in the Water Utilities FY23 budget, and is also partially funded by the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, which will ultimately provide for the totality of this project about $17.8 million towards the project. Our goal is to have all work associated with Phase 2 to be finished by March 24th, 2024. And the intention is, in the hope, is to have the entire Western Trunk project complete by December 31st, 2026. It is recommended that the commission would approve this. We also, I have, Robbie Kniss here is also available for any specific questions that are more technical and beyond the scope of my knowledge.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions on that?
Question, so the total cost of the project is what now?
For this Phase 2, what this contract is covering is $1.5 million.
I mean the total project itself.
I'll defer to Robbie there.
We don't have it yet. We have an initial estimate from the route study that Garnet gave to us, and they've estimated, I don't know if it's $49 or $50 million. So it is what I've been calling a generational project. We don't want to go in there and do this again. You know, we're going through a major section of town, really tearing it up. Someone shouldn't do this for a long, long time. This line was probably originally put in maybe the 50s or 60s, and you know, this thing's 70, 80 years old. We want the next line to, again, be generational. I don't want anyone to have to touch this again anytime soon. So
How long is the line?
the segment that we're replacing is 12,800 feet. The line actually goes further north and further to the west. And then once it gets down to that pump station, there's the rest of the line that goes from there near Southwest Elementary that runs across the golf course over to the Glendale plant. So we have future projects knowing that if you upgrade the top half of it, you're going to have to do something to the bottom half eventually. But this segment was the worst.
Thank you.
So
Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Robbie, thank you, Alex. Timeline, so would you hope for construction to start next summer, if I'm looking at that correctly?
So this is supposed to wrap up in about March of 2024. I noticed on their schedule, the key that I'll be looking for is getting that GMP, that guaranteed maximum price. They have that listed in about February of 2024. So we'll definitely be coming back to the commission for that. We're putting together an application to go to FDEP state revolving loan to get some additional funds. There'll be reasons for me to come back to the commission with resolutions and whatnot to approve that application. Actually, I think the next meeting, we plan to present a facilities plan to talk about this project in a little more detail, get the blessing from the city so that we can make that submission to DEP. So we're trying to scrounge money from all different directions to pull this off.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Okay, we don't have anything from the finance director. Is that the case? We have nothing from no utilities ordinances. We do have a resolution, number 1. That would be the fuel charge.
And
Are we going to hold off on that?
probably hold off on the utility items until 11 o'clock. I know Tori has a presentation on the fuel rate as well, which will correspond to that resolution. And we'll have
Are we looking to also hold off on items C1 through 4 for that as well?
Yes, sir. Those
Okay,
are all
do we have any
committee- all
issue with that from the members here? Okay. Well, then, at that case, then, we are adjourned. We will see you in just under 2 hours for our utility commission meeting. Thank you.